All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. So I wanted to open up the chat just to questions because we're going to move on. We're in this key the whole day, so I think that even if you've never done the work with C minor, like if you just keep hearing it over and over and over again throughout the course of the day, you'll build up some sort of forced familiarity with it. Okay, cool. So let's check this chat out. All right, so Salsa says, should you write melodic progressions by ear? Or are there rules to follow? Well, I think we're going to get, when you say melodic progressions, I think you're talking about chord progressions, and today's lesson ends exactly there, which is at chord progression. So obviously today is a lot about using C. There's different levels of complexity when we use a scale. We've spoken now about a very basic level of complexity, which is just identifying the notes in that scale, mapping them, numbering them, knowing them, and then using them to make some kind of melody. Okay, that's very, very elementary. Again, you can produce fantastic results with only that level of complexity. But as we move through sort of knowledge as a composer, you increase the complexity that you use C minor. For example, with chord progressions, with modulations, there's all the stuff from classical music that we can integrate. But we're probably going to get to that in the second or third lesson of Zoom because it's a little bit too much for today. But I will end today's lesson on chord progression basics because we're going to do some other concepts which are foundational now to chord progression. Okay. Tell us about your hardware software setup. Well, we get the second camera going. Someone's getting a phone call. Wait, you can't be phoning me now. I'm in the middle of a Zoom call. Please take that away. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll actually show you because I want to test this before we go into the second part. I've got a second camera feed that I thought could be cool because then you guys can see the chords that I'm playing and just see what my hands are doing. Okay. Lucky's at the gate. So just let him in. Thanks.
Just go share screen.
Share screen.
And just go to my iPhone.
All right, so let's just see. Hey, new share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just say share.
You have it?
Can you see it? There you go.
Aha! We're live, we're live.
Check if everyone can see it.
Can you guys see this window with my prophet in it? Do you see the prophet? Lovely. Ah! Okay, cool. So yeah, this is my hardware software setup. I've got the Dave Smith Prophet, which is my favorite polysynth. I've got the Nord D2, which I honestly hate. It's the worst synth ever made. But I use it to control Omnisphere in hardware mode, basically exclusively. It's not a terrible synth, but like it's not great. And then over here, MS-20, and then this is the new love of my life with my modular setup. Which, if we go deeper in the Zoom series, I'll take you guys into the modular and how to apply some of these concepts from this basic music theory into like a modular thing, which is again fascinating because it's this intersectionality between man and machine. You feed in these basic musical sequences, and it produces these extremely, extremely complex results. Okay, so yeah, I'll move to this view whenever we do chord sequences and stuff. In the meantime, let me kill that share. Let's get back to the notes. I'm gonna get the hang of the Zoom thing eventually. All right. Where's my notepad at? Cool. So keyboard off, notes on there. Yeah, lovely. Watch the light dash. Okay, cool. All right, so just quickly in the chat, tell me, do you guys want to revise what we've done, or do you want me to get on with this? Because I can do a quick revision, move on, get on. I love it, I love it. Keep it going, keep it going. Get on with it, move on. Fucking lovely. People are bored, mate. They're like, mate, I'm fucking bored, mate. Get on with it. No, I appreciate it. I feel your suffering. Cool. Okay, let's rock and roll. So we got C minor. We know that it's the 3, 6, and the 7 that are different from major. We know that we use these keys to differentiate the mode, okay? And now we're gonna look at the humble triad, the world's most common chord, okay? And you see I've put the humble minor triad, okay? Firstly, quick definition, what is a triad? A triad is a first, third, and fifth note of any scale, okay? So if I page on up to C major over here, which I did in comparison, and I look at the triad for C major, I know that that's the first, C, the third, E, and the fifth, G, the first, third, and fifth notes of that chord. In minor, it's the flat third, flat 5. Whatever the notes in the scale are, you're going to play those, 1, 3, and 5. So the minor triad is C, D sharp, and G, okay? Absolutely loving it. So that's what I've got over here is I've got the 1, 3, and 5 chord for C minor. Okay, and I basically just want to show you guys a whole bunch of stuff, just what I call phrasing options for how you can use probably the most simple chord that you can do in minor, or it is the most simple chord. It's the most simple chord ever. So if you say to someone, just play a default minor chord, this is the default minor chord, 1, 3, and 5, okay? And yeah, I'm gonna go through, it's gonna take some time because I haven't pre-written these sequences, so you're gonna have to bear with me, but I'm gonna show you live examples now of a couple of phrasing options for how you can get something simple like 1, 3, 5 in C minor moving by using different styles of phrasing, okay? Cool, let's go. So option 1 is chorded. So let's look at, I've shown you some brief examples, but I'm gonna elaborate on each of these 4 or 5 phrasing styles, okay? Right, back to Ableton. Share. Cool. Okay, now when I talk about phrasing, when you talk about phrasing, okay, because it's a really important distinction, we're saying take the chord that you chose as a composer, because composition and performing a musical phrase well are 2 very different things. I could compose and say, cool, I'm going to go from C minor to G sharp major, whatever it is, right? A great musician must perform that with nuance between timing, all the different accessories that a great musician will use, okay, to make that a fantastic fucking phrase. Because I could show you tracks that are fantastic tracks that don't have amazing chord progressions. There's nothing incredible about the music theory. It's just executed like with mastery, exceptionally well. So that's what phrasing is. You might know that, okay, I'm going C minor to G minor. How are you doing it? What range are you doing it in? What timing are you doing it in? What velocity are you doing it in? There's all these different accessories, which I'll elaborate again on in my notes, that sort of dictates, is this a good phrase or is it a bad phrase, okay? So I'll show you some basics, all right? I'm gonna take this simple, as I said, the world's most simple chord. It's a minor triad, all right? And I'm gonna play it in the most basic possible way that you can play it, which is all in the same octave, at the exact same velocity, bang, smack, yeah? And it's soloed, so let's just, all right. Arguably the world's most boring chord. Well, not really, because it's got that minor tension, but it's the most boring way that you can play minor. 1, 3, 5, same octave, no velocity differentiation, boring, okay? Let's start making that slightly more interesting by using different velocities to make the chord up. So you can see I'm just dragging those off axis and I'm just gonna put a little bit of velocity in those suckers, okay? Still a 1, 3, 5 chord, okay? Now let's play with the range. Instead of having the 3 in this octave, let's make it in this octave. And instead of having the 5 in this octave, oh, let's have the 5 in this octave. I'm not gonna get specific about inversions. I'm just, D sharp is D sharp. So it's always good to play with which octave D sharp is in. Now, what chord is it? Still a C minor, but it's got range in it. It's a 1, 3, 5 with range. and I'm going to change the range again. So now it's a 1, 5, 3 chord across 2 octaves. Slightly more interesting. Do you agree that that's a better version of that chord? Okay, lovely. Okay, so let's make a sort of chord phrase that sort of relies on chording. So maybe make this into 1/8. This window is really annoying. Just the window. Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Okay, cool. Nice. All right. Sorry, guys, there's a slight glitch. I think it's just the high quality audio. I'm feeding 44.1 audio straight into the card and then over the internet. So just you're going to have to just bear with me on the glitch, okay? All right, so sorry. That's obviously a grand piano. I'm just going to spot that sound out. That's nice. I like that sound. Okay. So why I really like Ableton for this type of basic composition is it lets you compose in blocks. Okay. So we're going to do something very simple. I've got the triad here. 1, 5, 3. And that's going to be block 1. Put a little variation here. Let's actually make that 1, 5, 2. So this is also a nice process in any key is to say, okay, cool. I've got C and I've got C and I've got G and I've got D sharp. Okay, and those are sort of very basic intervals, the 1, 3, 5. Now, if I want to add 1 degree of interest to that, I'll substitute one of those notes. So I either substitute 5 for 4 or I substitute 3 for 2. So now I've got 1, 2, 5. Right, then in the next block, in the next block, I will copy this note and I'll make it 1, 3, 5. We've got mega things happening in the chat here, something wrong. Okay, so ready, just listen to this. 1, 2, 5. Okay, right, so 1, 2, 5, 1, 3, 5. Okay. And third block, so now we've got 3 blocks. Some bass in there. What is going on in this chat, mate? Okay. Okay, no. Cool. Fine. Chorded sequence for C minor, just basic chorded sequence. Now, I'm just going to go and add a little bit of bass here. So give me 1 second. change in here? Okay, so as I said, just an example also of composing in blocks in Ableton. This is a 1-2-5 chord. This is a 1-3-5 chord. And this is a 1-5-7-3, 1-5-7-2-3 chord. So a little bit of variation there, okay? And it creates a sequence. C is the bass note right now. Okay, you can see, as soon as I change this bass note, it gets really interesting. So I hope that, are we starting to get some sort of indication of how to actually use these keys, how to use these keys to actually create nice, interesting little pieces of music. Okay, fantastic. Guys, sorry, can I ask you a question? As much as I love all of you guys, if we can just kill the chat about random shit that's like plugins and stuff, and maybe let's start a thing for after that, or we can discuss it, or you guys can make a group on WhatsApp or whatever, just because it's quite distracting. I just want to leave this chat dedicated to questions specific to the stream, if you don't mind. Sorry, I don't want to be a Nazi or anything. It's just there's a lot of chatter going on in this chat room, isn't there? It's kind of like that dweeb that keeps on chatting in the classroom. Just kidding though. Cool. Anyway, bottom line is this. That was the first of the phrasing styles where when I'm making this riff, I'm doing so by chording, okay? It's playing 3 notes at the same time. Dan, 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 dan. It's a chording style of phrasing, okay? Yeah, so I just wanted to show you like a basic example, electronic sort of example of how you could use C minor with chorded phrasing, okay? And you did see something that I haven't particularly explained because it goes into chord progression theory, and that's another level of complexity that for all of you saying advanced stuff, and we will get to advanced theory, I'm not going to go into full progression theory today. So unfortunately, that's going to have to be on another Zoom. But I will drop hints at chord progression theory. So what's happening here is, see, we've got the sequence, which is just a C minor, 1-5-2 chord, and C is the tonic note. Let's open up the frequency notes. Bass note coming through, okay? So that's all good. Now when I change the bass note, it's very powerful because it becomes the lowest note in the composition. The lowest note in the composition becomes the root note. Okay, so that's a very powerful thing. We're going to talk about this concept a hell of a lot because when I change the bottommost key, I'm actually doing a full key change. That's actually a full key change down to A flat major, which I'll explain in the progression stuff. See, I could cycle through all 3 of these modes. This is C sus2, or C152, C153, C157 variation. And I can cycle them all while C is the bass note. Then I go back with G sharp as the bass note and cycle. So yeah, that's just an example of a chorded phrasing style for C minor. Cool. Back to my notes here. All right. That was 1 of 5, so we're going to need a lot of time to do this lesson. Arpeggiated. So I'm sure you all know this. The definition of an arpeggio is to take a chord and break it up. Instead of going plank, 3 notes at the same time, I'm going to play them one after the other in quick succession, okay? So I can take a 3-note chord and I can break it up into arpeggio, dun, 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 into individual notes. So I'm playing the 3 notes of a chord, related as a chord, thinking of it as a chord, but I'm splitting the notes up into individual pitches that happen at individual times, okay? So I'll keep that same sound, but I'll just go and change the phrasing style now. to a more arpeggiated style. All right, so I'm taking my first chord. And now I'm going to look, I said a 1-1-3-5. I'm just going to look at a more sort of aggressive, faster, higher paced, more sort of electronic orientated interpretation of that same musical information. And for me, a lot of adding like technoism is just arpeggiation. So you see the C note, I'm just repeating it. Very, very basic. And when I've got some structure of how that C note repeats, there's a very basic structure. Let's get some loud and soft notes because I want to create a hit point on certain notes. All right. Now I'm going to start adding in intervals again. So I'm going to start adding in all the intervals that we had, which was 3 and 5. Over several ranges again. Okay, so that's an arpeggiated style now. And let's switch that sound up. Look for quite a simple like sawtooth sound here. Actually like that in the guitar. The guitar. On an octave. Nice bass phrasing. Okay, so you see it's a bit more like ding, 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 ding. Arpeggiation. It creates that movement. Let's do that. See, now I could have this single point in the melody that just keeps moving. So that's 6, 5, 5, 6. Oh, I like that. Nice variation. Okay, so that's like a, again, C minor, same intervals, but the style of the instrument and the style of the phrasing has changed completely. Let's put a little bass note here. And maybe just turn that filter down. It's a little bit wild. Ooh, fucking juicy, mate. Now I can change the bass note. Okay, so I think that pretty much demonstrates my point. That's exact same intervals. I chose a monophonic instrument, and instead of going clang, like with a beautiful sort of bell chord sound, exact same intervals, C, D sharp, and G, but now arpeggiated into like a more aggressive sort of high-paced, also more range on the vertical axis phrasing style. So yeah, what's going on in this chat? Cool. Okay, cool. Some great questions coming through here. Much more relevant questions. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to get to the groove, and I'm going to get to this, to all your questions about velocity at the end of this session. Okay, cool. So that's that. Okay, so that's, guys, I could go on and on and on. I'll show you one more phrasing style, but I just wanted to illustrate to you that, again, a chord or saying I'm in C minor, I'm in C minor, melodic minor, it doesn't really do that much. It's a very important awareness to have, but practicing using C minor. How does a great bass player play C minor? Like, what are the intricacies of the riffing? How does a cool keyboardist play C minor? How does someone who fucking knows how to make cool acid riffs in C minor? So you can do everything from the most darkest, obscure dungeon techno at Berghain to really sweet, like, you know, Dr. Dre type beautiful hip hop. You can do anything in C minor. So it's about you taking the time to just start voicing C minor in different styles. And that's what I wanted to show you here with these notes. It's just different options. Okay, so we did chorded, that's playing 3 or 4 notes at the same time. We did arpeggiated. I put a little note here. Styles are very, very important. For example, disco arpeggiated, very straight timing, very different from melodic techno arpeggiators, which I'll show you a bit later as we get more in depth. Runs, I'll just show you one example of runs, and then we can move on. I've said more on phrasing soon because my 2 lessons from now is just on phrasing. Lovely. Okay, so I'll just show you a run quickly. Could we hook up the second camera quickly, Tash, for some runs? So I'm going to share the iPhone. Lovely. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right, cool. So basically, if you just look at the styles, how would they translate in the keyboard? Here's a sort of chorded style. Okay, whatever it is, but it's chorded because I'm playing 3 notes at the same time. Okay, so it's a naturally sort of chorded style of playing. Then I took that same triad really, and I sort of arpeggiated, which is okay, just more fast-paced, frenetic, disco-y, sort of more conducive to high energy, more electronic styles. Okay, because I don't really use that much chording in my electronic music. Yeah, and then runs, which is the last slide. We can just focus here. Runs is where I just, for example, a great run that I really like to do is just move through the triad in different octaves like this. Okay, so I did that really slow. If you play it a bit faster. Those sorts of runs. Okay, so that's a really cool example. I'm just going 1 3 5 1 3 5 1 5 5 3 5. It's just a different numerical order of that same chord. And you can also do those kinds of runs going upwards. You can say 1 3 5 1 3 5 1 3 5, or 5 3 1. I use this stuff a lot in my melodic techno stuff. I run over huge octave ranges, just going 1 3 5 3 5 1 5 3 1 1 3 5 3 5 1 5 3 1, blah 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 blah. So yeah, just an overview of the 3 styles, very chorded sort of styles of playing C. Very arpeggiated. And then just sort of runs and all the sort of more complex ways of moving up and down the keyboard, using that same triad structure, 1 3 5, with different mathematical variants of the multiple. Sorry, my brain's going to shit. I need some blood sugar here, but different increments, different mathematical increments is what I'm saying. Cool. Let's go back to the notes and let's carry on. So we can kill that. All right. Cool, guys. So I apologize, but it's not the fun's over. We just got to take a 5-minute break, and not a break, just like a diversion into some more hardcore sort of boring theory. Unfortunately, in order to write cool riffs, we've got to have all this theoretical stuff waxed. And the thing is, what you don't want to be doing in a session when you're actually trying to make music is thinking about, oh, like what's the 5th of G or what's the 4th of C. You really want to know a key intimately and extremely well, because when you're actually composing, you don't want any interruptions. You don't want to stop and look for a sample. You don't want to stop and do anything that's not directly related to completely focusing on finding the best chord progression and the best riff. So I like to make you intimately familiar with the key, so that when you start working in that key, all the voicing, even the finger positionings, are sort of mapped into your neurons. And that's very important as well, to have some sort of physical correlation for what these chords feel like in your fingers. You don't have to be a great piano player, and a lot of best producers aren't great piano players. That's just having some ability to say, okay, this is a C minor, and there's some sort of relationship between the chords and the way that the fingers move. So I can't recommend enough. Just, I wouldn't say go get a piano teacher, but just sit and play these scales, and find a video on YouTube that just shows you how to play scales properly. And just keep, if you do 20 minutes a day, in 1 year, you will be playing piano like a legit musician. Cool, so that was a little bit of preamble. I'm showing you now what's called voicing or inversions for the C minor chord, okay? Every time we've played it, we've been playing it in its root position, which means that the notes 1, 3, 5, C, G sharp, and G in the C minor triad are played in that exact order, 1, 3, and 5, okay? So, let's just find it. Get an instrument to play this in. Anyway, that's a C minor triad, 1, 3, 5, or 1, 3, 5, 1. I've put this 1 at the top just because I like to play the C in the next octave. I like to play the root note in the next octave as well. Okay, so 1, 3, 5, 1, that's called root position, okay? When we move to the first inversion, we're just changing the order to 3, 5, 1, 3. So this is the first inversion of the C minor triad, okay? So I'm just going to open up this chat and just give me an indication of how comfortable you guys are with this concept. Very comfortable. Everyone's cool. Okay, lovely. Absolutely loving it. Okay, fantastic. Loving it. Okay, great, cool. So I'm gonna move through this quite quickly. It's super simple. 1, 3, 5, 1 is the root position. 3, 5, 1, 3 is the first inversion, and the second inversion is 5, 1, 3, 5. Okay, or it could be 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3. That's root position, first inversion, and second inversion for the C minor triad. Okay. I'll show you. Is the root position, I'm gonna get to all your questions, guys, in the chat. The root position is not considered home. The tonic note is considered home. You could have a chord, which is home, which is not in its root position. To answer that question. Okay, cool. So firstly, why? Why would we use inversions, okay? It's not just to make things sound more complicated. It's also because as a keyboard player, you don't want to move around too much, okay? So I'll show you a really basic example. Can we get the second camera going very quickly? Is it glitchy? So let's just keep it right here, and then I'll play super slowly. Okay, I'll show you very basic inversions then, and we're going to pick up this complexity a lot after this. So new share, iPhone. Okay, I'm gonna move super slowly on the keyboard, and I think you need to flip that around so they can see from the other side. Can you? No, like. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's fine. All right. So 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3. With C in the root each time. If I take that root away, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3. Okay. Let's say I'm playing a chord progression, and that chord progression is C minor, D sharp major, G minor. Okay. It's not a great chord progression, it's not a terrible chord progression, but I'm playing each of those now in their root position. 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. And that's what's making it sound so sort of generic, okay? Now, let's switch the voicing on one of those chords. So I'm gonna play 1, 3, 5. And then I'm gonna play 3, 5, 1. And then I'm gonna play 1, 3, 5. So you see, it just takes on a different sort of character. And if I'm doing proper progression, I'll invert at least 2 of the chords. So another example would be C minor to G minor only. Okay, let's do root position, C. Actually, let's do it with an inversion. Okay, I'm just playing a different order of the notes in G minor. So if you play with this in the sequencer, what you'll find, let's kill this. What you'll find is that it's going to deliver you better results almost instantly, especially when you're doing it with sequences. You can't play like 3 chords in root position in a techno track. It's not going to work. So I strongly, strongly recommend that you focus on inversions, because if you sit and write out a chord progression, for example, C minor, D sharp major, G minor, and you put those 3 chords together, you will have to invert at least one of those chords in order for it to sound like a professional composition. So yeah, strongly recommend that you fuck with inversions a little bit. And the more that I've played with it, the more sort of rewarding it's become, because when I'm on the keyboard, I just know the inversions for each key that I'm playing, and so I can often play great progressions without moving too much physically. So it actually makes the keyboard playing a little bit easier in terms of the physical movement. All right, now we're going to pick up the pace. So there's one more concept. So I think everybody's got C minor at this monophonic level, which I don't even need to review the concepts. We've started in C. We've identified notes that are related to C. We've labeled them, we've numbered them, and we've also come to understand their sort of emotional significance in relation to the root note. For example, the third is very dark. It's got this retention relationship between the second. So we know things about the C minor scale. We know how to use it monophonically. I've also showed you how to do things like chord it to make those sweet, beautiful sounds, arpeggiate it to make more high energy, sort of frantic phrases that are more conducive to electronic music. And then things like runs, just going up and down, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 1, 5, 1, 3, etc., and using the mathematics in interesting ways. Remember, you don't need to be able to play this because you've got the sequencer. The sequencer can emulate any playing style. So you can just enter the data in with a mouse, and then you can humanize it by using things like velocity and other things like timing, just to take away that sort of machine gun quality and make it a bit more humanized and natural, which again will be the subject of its own individual lesson. Cool. Now we're moving on, and let's go to my friend Zoom. The last concept that we need to do in this like monophonic type of thinking is relative majors and minors, and I love this concept because it's also sort of a launch pad that will take you into proper chord progressions and thinking like a composer at the harmonic level. Okay, and I did say this course was going to be about melodics and harmonics. Obviously, harmonics rely on a pretty good, solid understanding of melodics before you get there. So it's important that we understand all the sort of melodic stuff, all the monophonic stuff before we move on to harmony, because it can get very squirrely, it can get very confusing if you're not absolutely clear. Okay. So yeah, this is a bridge concept that's going to take us from C minor into, firstly, its relative major, and then into a whole world of available chord progressions that's really going to get us composing music, okay? Let's just run straight into it. What is a relative minor? Okay, a relative major and a minor is the most closely related key of the opposite mode, okay? Every major has a relative minor, and every minor has a relative major. For example, C major has the relative minor A minor, and A minor is the most closely related minor to C major. It shares all the same keys, it inhabits the same musical universe, it's got all these commonalities, and when you talk to high-level composers, they'll often say a piece of music is in C major, A minor. It's in both musical worlds, or it's in a shared musical world that's sort of inhabited by both the major and its relative minor, or the minor and its relative major, okay? So when you start thinking about harmony, this is a vital concept to understand. So I've just written some highlights. Each minor has a relative major and vice versa. It's the closest relationship of any key to any key of the opposite mode. It inhabits the same musical universe, and it shares the same keys exactly, but from a different tonic note, okay? I'll leave it at that. If you want to research that, there's a ton of information available online. How do you find a relative major, okay? From a minor, I've said, if you can read that, from a minor. All right, well, I'm in C minor, correct? And I've written a whole piece that I like, or I've got a sequence that I like in C minor, and now I want to calculate its relative major. So I go plus 3 semitones, and I go to the third, and that's the second time today that the third is sprung up as a key that has a lot of relevance. When we look at the minor scale, the third's important because It differentiates major from minor. It has the power to differentiate mode. When you look at it in terms of this level of thinking, the third is also the root key of the relative major when you're in minor. So if I'm in A minor and I want to calculate the relative major, I would go to the third. That would give me C. The C major is therefore the relative major of A minor. Now that I'm in C minor and I want to calculate the relative major, I go to the third. The third is D sharp. That gives me D sharp major is the third. It's the relative major of C minor. And you can actually see in this diagram over here that I've showed you how within 2 octaves, the major scale and the minor scale are sort of contained within each other. It's almost like a snake wrapped around a stick, like the image they use for medicine. But these 2 snakes and they're wrapped around, and you can't tell where the one starts and the other one ends. So I've got 2 octaves of C minor, C, D, D sharp, blah, 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 up to C, 2 octaves above. And you can actually see that if I start at D sharp, the relative major, D sharp major, is contained within the 2 octave scale of C minor. And if I did the 2 octave scale for D sharp major, I would also see C minor contained within that as well. So their key signature is exactly the same, but it starts from a different place, okay? And that's the relative major and minor relationship, okay? Fantastic. So let's just check this out quickly. It's up in the chat. Again, I'm going to come back to all these questions real soon at the end. Some good chats going on here. Cool. So that's the bottom line is, let's just do this from any other key. In fact, I've got a list over here. All right, here's a list of minors and their relative majors. And the reason I've done it like that is because it's electronic music, we start most tracks in minor. So the most common process is you're going to pick a key, A sharp, let's say, or D, and you're going to go calculate the minor scale, and you're going to start riffing and throwing sequences and building music around the minor. Then you're going to come to a point of, okay, I like this. Now I'm looking to plug this in to a musical world so I can really start looking from a bird's eye view, from a macro view at the composition, okay? And when you do that, you're going to need to think in terms of the relative major. So it's a critical step. When you want to move beyond this initial key in minor, you need to understand what its relative major is in order to plot chord progressions, even if you never use that relative major. And that's a critically important understanding as well, is you need to be aware of the relative major, even if you're not using it. That's very important. So I've just given an example. For example, G minor, if I'd started a random song in G minor and I go and I use the same logic, 3 semitones up to the third, I'm going to find A sharp major. D minor is F major. A minor is C major. D sharp major is F sharp major. All of these relative majors are the third note in the minor scale, and on forever. Okay, so that's the bottom line. That's the relative major and minor relationship. Just give me a little thumbs up in the chat if you guys are cool with that. As I said, there's tons of information on this online, and you can easily find tons of references to this concept. Lovely. All right, absolutely loving it. Cool. Okay, guys, we're almost there. We're 2 hours in. Can you believe it? 1 hour 45 in. I wanted to do one last concept with you guys today. And as I said, now we're getting into harmony. We're getting into sort of chord progression theory. I hope this whets your palate, whets the appetite, because this is something that I deeply love. It's a science that I have a deep, deep passion for. And yeah, I've spent the last 20 years studying chord progression theory, and I fucking love it more every day, to be honest. So if you guys like this, we can go so deep on progression theory. It basically just never ends. There's just added levels of complexity that you can add on every week. I'm gonna start very basic today, but I'm hoping that everybody gets excited about chord progression theory, and then the next one we can start from a little bit more advanced level and just go straight to the deepness. All right, let's do it. So I've actually got a cool project that I made. So, sorry, just give me 1 sec. Dude, can I have some tea? Do you mind? Sorry. Cool. All right, let me share this project with you. You share, let's go to Ableton. And so, oh, cool. Oh, sweet job. Shut up. Okay, let me get on the project that I made last night. Yeah. So actually, I thought it would be cool because everything's been 4/4 pretty much. So I thought it'd be cool to do some breaks because I'm doing quite a lot of breaks stuff on a lot of my new EPs, and actually the new album's going to have a lot of break stuff on it. So I just thought it would be cool to do something a bit different. So I made this little elementary thing. I've done it all in blocks because I thought it'd be a really cool example to illustrate this chord progression we're going to do. Okay, so let me introduce you to the most basic elements here. Hold on, this one isn't it? There we go. That's what I was looking for. It's actually got audio here. There's audio. Cool. All right, so I do this a lot when I start fresh tracks. Is I just I put down a foundation in the key that I'm in, and that foundation just contains either just 1 or 1 and 5, because the 5 is such a strong balancing note. It's called the dominant. And I always use the 5 just to sort of build a structure. I'm just saying to my listener, hey, yo, I'm in this key and I'm sort of priming you to expect additional layers of information, additional layers of melody and harmony as the song goes on. But I want to give you a clear indication and an unequivocal sense of what the tonic note is very early on, so that I can manipulate you because I know you invested in the composition. Okay, so I'm starting early on, and I'm just starting with this 1-5-1 in C. Okay, if we listen to, I made this little drum kit. It's also got a little bit of timing on it. And the one thing I did a little bit different compared to everything else I've made today, is I just loosened up this timing a little bit. So if you look at some of the 16ths here, I've just manually displaced them. It would be exactly the same as turning on swing or turning on shuffle, but I like to do it manually because it gives me a little bit more detail. And you can see, for example, here, the shake is a little bit more displaced in the hat a little bit more displaced in the tom, etc., etc. So there's just a little bit of humanization in the timing. Why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because, as I said, great phrasing relies on timing as well. You could go C minor to G minor, but a master musician can do even that elementary chord progression and make it sound fucking amazing. And the reason for that is because of the performance, all the intricacies, and timing is a huge and massively underrated and underused aspect of that. Okay, so yeah, that's just an example. I've loosened up the timing a bit, and my point was it's going to influence the way that I place the MIDI notes because I've got a little bit of swing, a little bit of shuffle on that drum group. Okay, let's introduce this element and this one. Again, all these sounds are sort of live. I can still automate them. I'm flipping again. No one say a word, I know. Okay, cool. So I don't need to show you the MIDI. I'm sure you guys can start hearing now. This is all in C minor, and it's all tuned to the root key. Okay. So if I just take you through the elementary, you'll see that fundamentally everything's just grounded with this very strong sense of C at the root. And when I do use intervals, they're very sparing, but I have made specific effort to use, for example, that minor third very early. I've used it again here. So it's very basic, very few intervals, but the intervals are very strongly minor, okay? Now here, it's quite playful minor because the sounds are quite disco-y. It's got quite like a loud, noisy, screechy thing going this track, which is exactly what I was going for. And so it's just all the different moods that you can get out of the same key, from really melancholic, sad music to this like loud, whiny sort of disco stuff. And this entire sequence of instruments is all just grounded in the key of C. Okay. Now, as I said, I'm not taking this triad concept to another level. Because what I'm doing now is, while this is playing, we'll do it without the lead. So while these are playing, I'm not going to change keys. So in row 2, every time that I had C in the root, in the bass, I've now moved that root up to its relative major. So every bottom C, or the bottommost Cs, are now going to be E flats or D sharps, okay? And what that actually means is I'm moving the root key of the composition from C minor up to D sharp major, which incidentally is its relative major, okay? So I'm now, this is our first chord progression really of the day, C minor to D sharp major, okay? And that's row 1 to row 2. And back. All right, now I'm going to add a third chord, which is G minor. All right, now let's do it with the lead. Okay, so really basic again, but the principle here is, if I just go back to my notes, the principle here is that I'm using this triad, which we were using monophonically. We were just going from the note C to the note D sharp to the note G to form a chord. Now we're taking that chord as the starting point, okay? And we're going from C minor, the chord, to D sharp, the chord in major, to G, the chord. Each chord consisting of its own 3 notes, okay? So my interval series is actually C, D sharp, G, 1, 3, 5 of C minor, to D sharp, G, A sharp, 1, 3, 5 of D sharp major, to G sharp, A sharp, D, 1, 3, 5 of G minor. And that is a C minor, D sharp major, G minor, 1, 3, 5 progression. It's a chord progression, okay? You can see here that I've just indicated how we would take this up in complexity. For example, we could add on a 7, C minor 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, to D major 7, which contains D sharp, G, A sharp, and D, to G minor 7, G, A sharp, D, and F, okay? And then I'm now stacking all these concepts on top of each other. We could then go take that same progression and we could use inversions. For example, C minor root to D sharp major inversion to G sharp minor inversion. Okay, so anytime that we have one of these concepts, we can stack up the complexity on another axis. But that's where I wanted to sort of end today, showing you this is starting. We've gone through this whole chain of logic to get into C minor. Why this key? Identifying the notes in the key, numbering them 1, 3, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then getting to know some chords, then getting to know the chord styles. I mean, the phrasing styles. Can we do it chorded? Can we do it monophonically? Can we do it runs? Can we do it? There's all these different ways that you can just use 1, 3, 5 monophonically across the keyboard. Okay, then we introduce this concept of relative majors and minors, starting in C minor and then plugging it into a larger musical universe, which is this relative major. And next time when we come back, I'll share some more insights on why that was so relevant, because this is going to be the key of the next lesson, is getting into harmony and relative majors and minors. And then where we ended is just the triad as a chord progression. Instead of the note C to the note D sharp to the note G to form a triad, we actually form triads out of each one of those notes. So we go to C minor, the chord, the triad, to D sharp major, the chord, the triad, to G minor, the triad. And then we can add that complexity by adding sevenths. And then we can add another level of complexity by adding inversions to those sevenths if we want. Okay, that's pretty much it, guys. That's as far as I wanted to take it today. That was what I'd consider to be a great primer to what this series is going to be about. And I'm going to open up to questions right now. Take all the feedback from this. I kind of already have an idea of what the next 4 or 5 lessons are going to be like, and I'm expecting each one to be just as detailed and deep as this one. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Just before, because I think we might lose some people in the questions phase, I just want to say thank you again to everyone who made this possible. Firstly, Akai for the awesome keyboards, the mixers, and everything else that they give us for the studio. It really is the core of my setup. And if you're a startup musician interested in getting keyboards that are actually going to be expressive and allow you to interact with all this cool software in a way that's really has a lot of feeling, I strongly recommend Akai. The velocity, the hammer weighting on the keyboards is just unmatched. Secondly, Mixroom Studios. Firstly, it's my best friend's company, and I'm not going to lie, I have a small share in it, but we started this company because we love it. We love doing post-production for high-level electronic dance music, and we want to be the best post-production house in the world for electronic music. So I can't vouch for Mark and his passion and his dedication enough. If you're making music and you want to take the sonics, the pure technical, the mixing, the mastering to the next level, info at mixroomstudios.com. And finally, if you enjoyed this lesson, feel free to make a donation to my Patreon. You really don't have to. This is not a guilt trip. I hate it when artists beg for money. And this is not any of that. I just want to, if we want to make this a proper channel, I can see it's going to take quite a lot of time and energy to do this in this much depth, like once a week. So did we lose it? Okay. So yeah, if you do want to make a donation to the Patreon, I promise you that every single cent that comes in there will get directly spent on just making this channel and the Zoom channel better tech, more stable cameras, everything, and just a better experience for you watching it. I love doing these lectures because I love music theory and I like to remember all the different nuances and intricacies. So if you enjoy it, hit me up and we'll arrange another one, maybe same time next week. Thank you very much for joining us, and we really enjoyed this. Let me open up to some questions and then we're going to call it a day. Mate, we got guys only joining now, mate. You missed the whole party. All right, guys, let's go. Just looking on the chat here. A lot of fuckery on this chat here. Okay. Here's some stuff. Guys, looking at this, I kind of feel like we answered every single one of these questions, pretty much. I'm not seeing any great things that are unanswered here. No. Okay, so Salsa asked, are there any rules to which chord is inverted in the chord progression? No, there aren't, man. It's just whatever sounds good. It's just whatever. Also, that you can play. You know, I got fat fingers, so I can't get up into all these really complex, like, high positions to play. Especially, like, maybe I can, like, if I'm sober at 9 o'clock in the morning, but, like, on stage, live, there's absolutely no way I'm going to be playing, like, really complex inversions. So I just keep things very simple, especially for stage. So I tend to simplify my inversions just based on what I can physically play with my 12 fingers for live. Okay, good question. Do you start composing in session view or always use arrangement? Whoa, okay, well, that's a great question. You can do it in either, man. The more I use Ableton, the more I come to love composing in session view, because it's just so tentative. I find, like, once I'm in that arrangement view, it's quite committed. And so I feel a bit stuck sometimes. So I really like having stuff that's running. And at any time I can say, no, you know what, that G minor, I don't want it for 2 bars. I want it for 4 bars. I want it for 1 bar. I want it for half a bar, and just move through. Because yeah, a lot of what I get stuck on, used to get stuck on, is when to move between different chords. And I really, really like this idea of, okay, I've got them all, and I can just hit my controller and, oh, there's a switch up as I'm opening that filter or whatever. So the big advantage for me for session view is just spontaneity, non-committal, being able to really play with things before you lay down. And also it's kind of a nice way to arrange music as well. Fletcher says, I'm very new to music theory. Where must I start? Dude, if you drop us a mail, I will send you a basic pack. And for everybody that joins my Patreon, even if you only donate 1 cent, I will send you, I think it's $1. It's minimum. Is it? Are we selling packages now? I'm just kidding. But even if you just send me a mail, I'll send you the chord progression. You have to give me money. I'm joking. Cool. Do I have a controller? Yes, I have the Ableton Push, and I have the Vestax VMC 600 and a whole bunch of other control surfaces and stuff throughout the studio. So yeah. Any chance of running through your live set? Absolutely. I would love to do a live session. I think we'll set it up. I think definitely one of the topics will be translating all this theory into into live context, because that's a whole nother level of fuckery. On neo-soul chords in minor scale, my man, I actually don't know. I'd have to check that out. Where can I find the recording? We're going to host it. Cash is going to take care of that. I don't know where it is because we've never recorded with Zoom. Apparently it's on the cloud. I think they'll send us a link. We will send a link to everyone that's in this chat. And then last question is just about tuning the kicks. So two-part question. Yes, you do have to tune kicks. Absolutely. You should tune your kicks. I do tune my kicks. All the good producers I know do tune their kicks. So how to tune your kicks? Well, I use the EQ in Ableton. I literally just look at it. I see where the highest fundamental is and I pull the pitch until I'm happy. I often make kicks with my modular rack, and then I actually just push the tuning until I'm in the key of my song and I use the key of that. But I often also buy kicks, and it's a new thing to find kicks that are already tuned. And the last very cool fucking tip, gold for the people that stay to the end, do yourself a gigantic favor. This changed my life. Take your entire sample library, okay, and run it through mixed in key. Even stuff that you don't think is tonal, like hats and fucking random bongo loops and every single sample that's on your drive, run it through mixed in key. Mixed in key is going to spit out a value like 7A, that's D minor. Next time you're making a track in D minor, only search for samples in 7A. Boom. You're only finding and searching samples that are relevant to the key that you're in. So yeah, that's basically the best tip. I mean, when I did that, because I used to sit for ages, like going through 100 different folders looking for a kick drum in E. Now I just go, boom, 8A, everything in E comes up. Boom. All right, guys, thanks so much. I really, really, really enjoyed today. Hit us up with any questions and we'll be in touch soon. And spread the word if you enjoyed it, and check out the Patreon, and don't forget to give some love to my sponsors for making this happen. Thanks so much, guys. See you soon. Ciao.